French President Emmanuel Macron has wrapped up an official visit to Beijing, hoping he's dissuaded his Chinese counterpart from supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It's the second time President Xi Jinping has played host to a European leader in the last 5 months, as the Ukraine conflict continues to rage on.
Well, joining us now is Dominique Fraser, a research associate at the Asia Society Policy Institute. Dominique, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let's take a look at how French President Emmanuel Macron was received and what his gestures were in China during his visit. Now, I noticed that his speech and gestures were very cordial, was very warm, it was cajoling. Do you think this would have been able to change President Xi's stance when it comes to China's support of Russia in the Ukraine conflict?
Yeah, good question. It doesn't seem to have done that. So I think Macron went with a few objectives in mind. First of all, as you said, was to sway Xi Jinping on his support for Russia. And in exchange, he was willing to offer, sort of France's trust in the recovering Chinese market and show that France is unwilling to decouple from the Chinese market, as the US is calling for, of course. Underlying all of that is France's belief or self-view of itself as an Indo-Pacific Western power, and Macron's drive for the European Union to find strategic autonomy from the United States, with France at the center of this European autonomy. And of course, as you said, Macron sees himself as an international statesman who believes, or seems to believe, that at least some of his charm can sway international strategic decisions, which didn't seem to have happened.
Yeah. Now, Macron's last visit to Beijing was about 4 years ago. This trip, he was accompanied by a delegation of business leaders, artists, museum officials as well. How seriously would Beijing have taken, this delegation?
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think it really shows that Macron's message on Ukraine was undermined by his own delegation. So on the one hand, he said that most of the trip, or the main focus of the trip, was going to be Ukraine. But by bringing, I think it was something like 53 business leaders with him, he also showed really importantly that France wants to remain an important economic partner of China, and basically that this relationship wasn't dependent on China's relationship with Russia.
Now, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited Beijing in November last year. It's obvious that Europe is keen to maintain relations with China. But then I want to read you this Chinese university report on EU-China relations, noting that Europe's stance on China was marked by, I'm going to quote here, hostility in ideology, vigilance in security, and competition in economics. It seems as if these are the same obstacles that China faces with its relationships with the US as well.
Yes, I think there's really important differences between the relationships between Europe and China, and the US and China. But also I think it's important to note that Europe itself internally is divided. So as you say, Germany and France are intent on maintaining the close or the important economic relationship. And France also sees China as a strategic and global partner. That is quite different to how many within the Eastern, Central and Northern European blocs are seeing that relationship. Mm-hmm. They are much more hesitant to engage further with China. And over those sort of two competing blocs within the EU is the EU Commission, whose president, Ursula von der Leyen, travelled alongside Macron, which has termed the relationship with China both a partnership, a rivalry, a competitor and a rival. So there's a lot of different opinions even within Europe on how to classify this partnership.
Yeah, certainly a very interesting relationship as we keep an eye on that one. Dominique, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this morning. That's Dominique Fraser there from the Asia Society Policy Institute.